Did Miami's loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers reveal the team's biggest weakness?
Well, if their biggest weakness is not being healthy, then yeah, probably.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Join the Cookie Gang, become an everydayer by subscribing. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. I'm Wes Goldberg, host of Locked On NBA Daily and Real GM Radio. I'm here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. Got a ton to get to today. We're going to talk about a rare bad game from Jaime Jaquez Jr. and another Heat player whose struggles are becoming a bit more of an issue this season. But let's start with our big takeaways from this game. David, we're recording this right after the Heat's 130-116 loss to the Cavaliers after beating them on Monday. They lose to them on Wednesday, despite the fact that the Cavs were without Donovan Mitchell, no Darius Garland, no Evan Mobley. But for the Cavs, Jarrett Allen dominated. And David, my biggest takeaway is that this is the first time since Bam exited the lineup with this foot injury that the Heat have really missed Bam Adebayo. Yeah. They got killed on the boards, but even more importantly and worse for the Heat, they just got crushed defensively in this game. They gave up 130 points to a Cavaliers team without 3 of their top 4 scorers. And a Cavaliers team that's, by the way, still missing Max Strus. Sam Merrill, outside of a 91-second eruption on Monday night, has been in a huge shooting slump. He was 1 of 8 in this game. I'm looking at this, their starting lineup of Lonzo Ball, Sam Merrill, Dean Wade, DeAndre Hunter, Jarrett Allen. You got Craig Porter Jr., Larry Nance Jr., Tyrese Proctor, Luke Travers, Naquan Tomlin. Like, I don't know who half these players are. Yeah. And I'm not exactly sure, looking at this roster for Cleveland, how they scored 130 points. It felt like Miami's defense was that bad, and they really missed Bam as a stabilizing force.
I think that's... I think Bam's absence was certainly magnified. I think Bam would have helped to do a lot of the things that Miami should have been doing in this game. But I think there's an even bigger problem. Yes, Bam was absolutely missed because, as we talked in the previous episode, he does so many little things, and there is a need for a player that can bring that level of defense, make the impact play, and everything else. But I looked at this production, and I looked at the game in general, and the sense that I got was there was zero sense of urgency. And I don't know if they felt a little overconfident after Monday's thrilling overtime win, or maybe the fact that they had won 3 games in a row. I don't know if there was somebody there in that locker room to keep them a little bit more level-headed, to focus just at the task at hand. But there was never any sense of urgency about this game. And they played with their food a little bit too much. They got off to a really hot start, a nice early lead. And from that point forward, it almost felt like they were coasting for the rest of the game. No real drive to just realize the Cavaliers were shorthanded. This is a game that we should win, and they should have dominated. They really should have dominated this game. Not they shouldn't have lost by any stretch of the imagination, but they should have actually dominated this game, because that team that was out there for the Cleveland Cavaliers was not an NBA team. It was not really. I mean, Jarrett Allen was great. DeAndre Hunter was fine, etc. But Miami is a better team than they are, because yes, they were missing a couple key players, but they were fully healthy, and they allowed themselves to be bullied by a Cavaliers team that had no right to be in that position to bully anyone. And so I think that the Heat were just playing without any kind of real sense of purpose. And this is the first time all year where it felt more reminiscent of the group they were last year, where we weren't quite sure what to expect from them on a night-to-night basis, because there was no real identity for this team. This team has an identity. We've seen it for the first 11 games of the season. Tonight, we did not. I think they really got away from it, and I don't know why. And I think part of that is really just having no Bam Adebayo on the floor, because he is such an emotional leader, because he is such a factor and helping to carry a team by inspiring them to do all those little things that they need to do in order to get these kinds of wins. And so it was a real lackluster and disappointing effort from a group that should have been more cognizant, more aware of the fact that they could have continued to build. Like, this is a great opportunity. They could have surpassed Cleveland in the standings had they won in tonight's game. They would have been 8-4. They would have been 4 games over 500. And I was just thinking, like, simple math, as stupid as it might seem, 7-5 is a lot worse than 8-4. And here you are, just 2 games over 500 when you had the opportunity to go 4 games over 500. I mean, it should have been a lot better.
It's a bad loss. There's no question about it. This is a bad loss. Norm Powell after the game called it a bad loss. This is a bad loss. You should beat this Cleveland Cavaliers team, this skeleton crew Cavs team. Danny Cunningham, who hosts Locked On Cavs, basically joked with me. He texted me earlier and he was like, have you ever been to a G League game? Because this is going to be a G League game. That's essentially what that Cavs roster. Maybe being a little harsh on who Cleveland had available, but still, like when the bench got in there, it looked like a G League team. In terms of the lack of urgency, they looked slower tonight. They weren't playing with that pace, that tempo. And I don't know if it's necessarily a lack of urgency, not having your emotional leader of Bam Adebayo out there. That's probably a part of it. I think the other part of this too is it finally it feels like the schedule caught up with them. It felt like the schedule caught up with them. The legs just didn't look like they were there. They looked like a team playing on the second night of a back-to-back, even though they weren't. But, I talked after the Monday game. That's a game where you kind of go into it being like, yeah, kind of coming off this trip, 3rd game in 4 nights.
Right.
That's kind of a scheduled loss against a really good Cavaliers team. And they went out there and won it in overtime. This isn't the 3rd game in 4 nights, but this is the 4th game in 6 nights. And they played overtime in a really intense game on Monday. And I almost thought Cleveland benefited from not having some of their guys that were in that Monday game playing big minutes in this one. The Heat just looked really tired. And I say that while also not letting them off the hook, right? Like, you still should have beaten Craig Porter Jr. and Tyrese Proctor. You still should have beaten that team without Bam, without Tyler Hero. And given what this schedule has been, and I have another note on the schedule that I want to get to here in a little bit. But that was my takeaway, is that you looked slow and you missed Bam. But defensively, if we zoom out a little bit, David, like, this has been... It's not been a bad defensive year. It's been a different defensive year for the Heat. They're still, going into this game, they were 2nd in defensive rating, schedule adjusted. Which, to a lot of Heat fans, that probably sounds nuts, considering what the point totals in some of these games have been. But I try to remind people, like, defensive rating is points per 100 possessions. And a lot of these games have been over 100 possessions. I think this one was like 106 possessions or something. A lot of these games have been over 100 possessions, so you most have to kind of come down. Like, a lot of these, because of Miami's pace, a lot of these raw point totals in these games are inflated. But on a possession-to-possession basis, which is what that defensive rating really measures, they've actually been better than they were last year. And I go back to what I said earlier. Like, this was the first time where defense really felt, not the first time, but this, like, the biggest time this season where defense felt like a real issue, that they just could not get a stop when they needed it. I thought Kel'el Ware was good in this game. I don't think that they had much of a big man presence outside of that, and that's where they really missed Bam. It's not even a knock on Kel'el. It's basically just Bam's an all-world defender. You didn't have him out there tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly part of it. Giving up 104 field goal attempts.
Yikes.
31 free throws.
Yikes.
Compared to just 13 for Miami. So
sort of the inverse of Monday, right? Like, Miami stuck in that game Monday night because they were at the free throw line every other possession. And that was the opposite. It was just a ton of turnovers. 21 turnovers for 29 Cavaliers points. They sent them to the free throw line 31 times. Cleveland made 26 free throws. Miami made 11 free throws. That's your game. I mean, we could parse this in a million different ways, but if you're giving up 29 points off turnovers and you're getting outscored by 15 at the free throw line, that's the ball game.
Yeah, I wonder how much fatigue, and I don't think players will ever cop to that, but it could have been a factor. I hadn't really considered that, but you're absolutely right. Given the emotional high of Monday, the road trip and everything else, maybe this was a bit of a letdown. Kind of like the way some teams in a playoff series will take game 2 off if you steal one on the road. It's like, you know what, we did our job. We at least won one. Maybe there was that kind of sense too. So a lot going on in terms of why they might have taken their foot off the gas a little bit, but still, it's difficult to find any reason to justify this. And you're right that they did not look like the team they had been for all season long. Like the pace wasn't there, the urgency wasn't there. Just weren't able to finish at the rim. Jaime Jaquez's production was terrible.
We'll talk about Jaime in a
layups.
second. Yeah,
I mean, they were just smoking layups. They're just
Yeah.
easy shots all the way around. And maybe that's the difference right there, whether Bam plays or not. If you just hit those easier looks and you don't give up 31 free throws, maybe you might find a way to eke this out. And they just couldn't get it done tonight. So, yeah, the defense is certainly a concern. And I don't know that there's a quick fix to that because, well, other than welcoming Bam Adebayo back at some point soon.
Exactly. You mentioned Jaime Jaquez Jr. Rare bad game for him, but another Heat player's struggles are becoming more of a real issue. We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by Wayfair. The holiday season is right around the corner, and that means it's time to get your home ready. Whether you need more seating for guests, cozy new linens, or fun serveware for holiday hosting, Wayfair's Black Friday sale is here to help you make your space shine. And the best part, well, you don't have to wait, because Wayfair's Black Friday deals are happening all month long with up to 70% off everything from sofas to spatulas. Listen, if you want to upgrade a specific room in your house, or you know how it is with the holidays, maybe you're having a big Thanksgiving dinner, people coming over, maybe you want to do something special for Christmas. Well, this is the time to upgrade those things. I know a lot of people are tight with expenses around the holidays, but Wayfair's deals make it easy to find what you're looking for at a great and affordable price. And this is the opportunity for you. So don't miss out on early Black Friday deals. Head to wayfair.com now to shop Wayfair's Black Friday sale for up to 70% off. That's Wayfair, WAYFAIR.com. Sale ends December 7th. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Bad game for Jaime Jaquez Jr. He goes 4 for 15 overall, missed all 4 of his three-point attempts. Didn't get to the line as much. Went 3 for 3 from the free throw line. 4 assists, 3 rebounds in this game. Wasn't the culprit for the turnovers, but it was the lack of efficiency. It was the lack of lift when he was at the basket. And that was the thing when we're really sort of talking about, players, the maybe the fatigue that set in. I noticed it most with Jaime.
Yeah.
I mean, he missed, especially in that second half, 3 or 4 bunnies right at the basket that I don't know if they swing this game from an L to a W, but maybe they do, right? And there was just so many pockets of this game where if Norm Powell wasn't really going off, nobody was. And those are usually the moments where Jaime Jaquez Jr. is stepping up and being the guy on offense, and they just missed him tonight, David.
Yeah, he looked really shaky. It was like he just couldn't really seem to get anything done. The burst that we've seen from him to be able to get downhill and finish at the rim, the explosive plays, the timely crossover moves that we've seen, none of that was in his repertoire today. And then the fact that once he did get to the rim, if he was able to get past an initial defender, I don't know if he was maybe a little too aware hearing footsteps when it comes to Jared Allen. Maybe he feared that his shot was going to get blocked or something like that, but didn't finish with the same kind of swerve as he normally does. It just something was missing, that extra X factor, and it looked a little bit more like what we saw from him last year, where he just wasn't explosive enough to really be too productive or to be as efficient as he has been this year. So maybe I know he's been putting a lot of miles on, and he's certainly been a great and unexpected boost to this team for the season, and maybe it just did catch up to him the way it has to everybody else on this roster. But it was a bad night for him. And I didn't see anything that Cleveland did to really take him out of his game either. I don't think there was any they weren't keying on him. They weren't trying to limit access. They were defending him as they normally do. He just wasn't able to capitalize on it the way he has in past games.
Yeah, I'm counting it right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-ish shots in or around the restricted area that he missed.
Yeah, that's not good.
No, and
that's only 5 of 7. Yeah, he's normally 5 of 7 from there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if he makes, exactly. If he just makes a normal amount of those, then maybe that is a little bit of a different game. The Heat had a 14-point lead in the third quarter of this one, and they were just sort of dying for somebody to step up and kind of take them home. And that tends to be Jaime Jaquez Jr. and Norm Powell, and neither of them were able to do it down the stretch. Norm Powell was a little bit better, obviously, than Jaime. And Powell, 27 points in this game. I mean, he was not the problem. 10 of 18 overall, 5 of 10 from three-point range. But the other guy that we need to talk about right now, David, is Nikola Jovic. Team worst, minus 16 alongside Jaime. Both of them were a minus 16 in this one. But with Nico, 1 of 6 overall, missed all 3 of his three-pointers. 4 rebounds was not enough. 3 assists was fine. 2 steals was okay. 2 blocks, okay. Did have 4 turnovers in this game, and they were pretty bad ones. It was a rough game for Nico, and it's not his first rough game for Nico. And he had a career high 29 points the other night, and everybody's writing and talking about maybe this is the turning point for Jovic this season. And then a couple of stinkers in a row, and this one was really stinky.
Yeah. Tough to say. Again, tough to pinpoint any one thing that was bothering him or keeping him from being as effective as he had been or over the weekend when he did have that career high. And it is becoming more of a problem. And I don't know if he's feeling pressure. Like, I know that people have been critical of Jovic, and I think it's deserved because he has been struggling for most of the season. But I don't think we were reaching for anything when we talked to him at Media Day or even before that during the preseason, given what we saw during Eurobasket tournament and the way he played during the offseason. The expectations were high. And I know that this is something that we've done routinely over the offseason because we've seen that growth over the offseason when he does play internationally and then or in an Olympic play or something like that. And the expectation is that it's going to be able to translate to the NBA level. And it really hasn't. He hasn't taken that leap just yet. But we weren't the only ones. The fact that the front office saw what they did during the preseason and that he was awarded the starting job on opening night, I think that spoke to the fact that they recognized that he had made improvements and they were expecting him to take that leap. And maybe similar to what we saw from Duncan Robinson when he was given his contract, maybe the expectations that come with that contract might have been a little bit too much. Now he might be putting pressure on himself in a way that we didn't expect him to. He just hasn't lived up to it. I mean, it's we can't really speak to the psychological factor of this, although there probably is one.
No, but you've been on this for a long time. Like when he makes a bad play, he gets down on himself. And Norm Powell talked about that the other night about, I'm always in this guy's ear. He's really hard on himself after a bad play. I always have to remind him, like, let it go, move on to the next one. That's a real thing. And you even saw it in this game. Early in the game, in the first quarter, he checks in for his first stint and almost immediately just throws a bad pass, throws it away right to the Cavaliers. Head goes down, kind of jogs back onto the other end. And it just kind of felt like his night was ruined after that. It never really got to where it needed to be. And there's a level of aggressiveness with Nikola Jovic that we want to see more of. And I think some Heat fans say that that's on the coaching staff to give him the ball more as a point forward or something like that. I just think it's on Nico to go get the ball, especially in this offense when there is no real sort of point guard. There's no guy with a super high usage rate. Like everybody can go get the ball and do something with it in this offense. And on his 29-point night, that's what Nico was doing. He was going and getting the ball. He was running in transition. He was making himself available. And it was one of those games where he disappeared offensively. And then defensively, he was really bad. Like he was folding like a lawn chair against Jared Allen. And when you're not really providing anything on either end, that's how you end up being a minus 16 in what was a pretty close game for the most part until the very end of this thing. So he needs to be better. He needs to play with more force more consistently. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And he can't get down on himself when he has a bad pass turnover or he misses a wide open three-pointer. He has to just keep going. That's really it with him. And it's taking care of those little things and continuing to do those little things even when the shot's not going in, because the shot's not always going to go in. But Eric Spoelstra always talks about this, and I think it's a great point. When the shot isn't going in, you still got to find a way to try to be a positive on the plus-minus on the night and be a positive story for your team on that night. And he wasn't really doing anything positively on the court tonight.
Yeah, it's a great point. And that's on everybody. And I think that applies to a number of players, but the focus here on Nico specifically. But you did see a couple players step up. And so there were some solid performances. I think Powell was great. Davion Mitchell was pretty good. Even Wiggins, after his big basket to help seal the win on Monday. He responded with a nice game today, but
Are you
I think
concerned
Jaime
long term about
Nico?
Jovic?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because the leap has to be there. It should have been there by now. Like we saw
They
something
thought
in
it
the
was going to be
preseason.
there. That's why they gave him the
know.
contract. He had everybody at a training camp was talking about how this guy was so ready. His preseason was pretty good. Eurobasket, to your point, was awesome with him.
Yeah.
And then the regular season started and he just sort of wilted. And that's the part I cannot figure out with him. It's when the lights are bright, when it's really time, he's had multiple chances now. Eric Spoelstra has put him into the starting lineup multiple times now, 2 years in a row. And he kind of just loses the job during the regular season. And I don't know what it is with him. And I don't think it's the contract. I really don't. I don't think it has anything to do with the contract. Because like I said, we've been here before with him.
Yeah.
And he didn't have the contract then. So I don't really know what it is.
I that might magnify things, but you're right though. I think that
magnifies things from the outside, about it being a bigger problem, but for him, like just basketball wise on the court, I don't know that the contract has anything to do with it. I don't know if you suddenly strip away the contract extension, Nikola Jovic is going out there playing better basketball.
No, because it could be just as easily the inverse, where it's like, well, I'm playing for something, and then that puts added pressure, and so for every turnover or bad play, then it's like, oh, I'm not going to get paid, etc. But now that he's getting paid, that should provide more comfort, but it could provide, maybe a little fear of not living up to those expectations. But he's just got to tighten it up because the talent is undoubtedly there. The size, the skill, the speed. He has the ability to be a really, really good NBA. You don't score 29 points the way you do and have that kind of confidence level for one game and then just have it shut off the very next day. So there has to be something there where he's got to be able to just focus and tighten it and just feel that best version of himself so that he could be the player that Miami expects him to be, that he expects himself to be, because he spoke to us confidently about talking about wanting a starting job. He might fall out of the rotation. And we've seen this before where it's like, you know what, you're too essential at this point for this team. Last year's iteration, the year before, completely different. This year's team, he's too valuable to just pass up on. So he's going to continue to get playing time. Perhaps not as much once Tyler Hero and Bam do return to the lineup. But I think he's still, even then, I still would say he's part of the rotation moving forward.
I think he has to be, right? I mean, he has to. They just don't have that many options right there. We'll talk about that here in a second. But what is just really disappointing about this is when Nico is good, he's so additive. He is not a floor raiser. He is a ceiling raiser. And when he's playing well, it's not even one of those situations where he's taking away from other guys, right?
Yeah.
Not to throw this guy under the bus, but like Cam Thomas in Brooklyn, when he's scoring 40 points, it means somebody else isn't scoring at all. With Nico, when he's scoring 29 points, everybody else is kind of doing their thing too. He is really additive when he's playing well, and he raises the ceiling of this team. But when he's not playing well, and when Bam is out, it becomes a real issue because he's the only other big on the roster right now. That's part of the rotation outside of Kel'el. Where do the Heat need to add another big man? Did this game prove it once and for all? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by Built. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, well, you might as well get something for it. And that's where Built comes in. Built is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards you can actually use. When you pay rent through Built, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed toward hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and much more. But Built isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. You'll love that with Built, well, your rent finally works for you. You're earning points every month on something you've already got to pay. Whether you're grabbing food at your favorite local restaurant or heading to the gym, you're still earning rewards. And it just makes everyday life feel a little bit more rewarding, from your neighborhood to your travel plans. Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That's joinbilt.com/LockedOnNBA. Make sure to use that link so they know that we sent you. Today's episode is already also brought to you, I should say, by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Unfortunately, low late push from Miami tonight, and you wonder whether or not a game like tonight kind of takes Jaime Jaquez's value in those Six Man of the Year award possibilities. Maybe it just takes a little hit, but you know what? I'm starting to like Norm Powell's chances of becoming a first-time All-Star this season in the Eastern Conference. So that might be something to look into for the future. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We'll be right back.
Thanks to everybody who sent in questions via the Locked On Heat text line. You can join with the link in the show notes. Malachi writes in, did the Heat overlook the shorthanded Cavs so much that they committed so many sloppy turnovers, or are turnovers a real problem for this Heat team? I actually looked into this. I don't think turnovers are an issue for this team. They don't rank highly in any of the turnover stats. What you look at turnovers per game, turnover percentage, assist turnover ratio, all of that stuff is really fine.
Mm-hmm.
To me, this was just this game where it looked a little bit like it looked in the preseason, where you just had a lot of wayward passes going in wrong directions and guys not being there when the ball was there. And again, I think fatigue was a real issue in this game. I'm not overly concerned about the turnover thing yet, but I do think it's worth monitoring, given the breakneck speed that this team is playing at, and whether or not they can keep this speed up, or if there's just going to be a game like this every once in a while when you're playing at this tempo where you're just going to be a little bit more tired than your opponent.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I agree with you. I don't think it's a long-term problem. Something to definitely monitor if it continues to worsen, but the pace the style of play will lend itself to the occasional turnover. And you just have to accept those because of how good Miami's offense has been so far this season. But with the fatigue factor likely being a problem tonight, I think that's also going to magnify any propensity for making turnovers. And you just saw the team they were missing that edge. Whatever spark it was to take them from a kind of mid-tier team to as good as they've been over the last few games was definitely missing tonight. And it's going to lend itself to making the bad pass, the errant pass.
Yep.
Maybe you're not going to make that cut as quickly. There were a number of plays that I don't think we've seen all season where they were just tossing the ball to a player that was no longer there. And there was a lack of communication. It's like, oh, are you going to make that cut, or were you supposed to be somewhere differently? A lot more frequently tonight than you see normally from this team. So there definitely had to have been something off with this group where they just weren't playing at a high level the way we're accustomed to seeing this season.
Yeah, I think defensively, again, it starts there. They were taking the ball out basically every time that they were going onto offense, and they were forcing things, right? Like they weren't able to get out on the break off of steals or off of rebounds. They were constantly taking the ball out of their own basket and trying to force things offensively, and they had to play a little bit slower because of it. It became a half court game in a way that they don't want to play, and that's why, as much as we've talked about the Heat's offense this season, their defense has been just as big of a story. Like their defense fuels the offense in a real way, not in a way that it was during the Jimmy Butler era where these turnover, you needed steals to get into the open court, but there's still something to be said about making this an up-tempo, up and down game. And one of the ways to do that is to play in the open court more, which means to get stops. And again, I go back to my initial point. They really miss Bam. Drew writes in, did this game prove that the Heat need to add a big man? So we mentioned Nikola Jovic, a minus 16 in his 22 minutes. Ware played 28 minutes in this game, which is kind of a lot for him. He's usually around the 25, 26 minute mark. Do you think that looking at this game, understanding that it's still probably going to be Kel'el while Bam is out, it'll be Kel'el and it will be Nico, right? Regardless of his struggles. But it would have been nice to have somebody out there or on the roster able to play, considering how Nico was struggling. Like if Nico comes out with that first half, if you have another rotation level big on the roster, you could just tell Nico, hey man, not your night. Get him next time. We're going to play this other guy in the second half. And who knows how that changes things for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds good in theory, but who's going to be available that's going to be
Would you
even a
rather have had
decent
Precious Achua had they not waived him?
than what you got from Nico tonight?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't
Precious
think he would have
started
made
for
a difference.
Sacramento tonight. What did he do?
I think that's more about Sacramento than it is about Precious Achiuwa.
Definitely is. He has that game is still going. He only played 6 minutes and was a -12. So, but that was the best among their starters. Russell Westbrook was a -24. Domantas Sabonis was a -27. DeMar is -24. But like you said, that has a lot more to do with the Sacramento Kings.
We talked about this yesterday with Dallas, and maybe they might blow things up. The Kings team, I know, they seem like they're ripe for a big explosion.
You've got the Carmichael Dave out there, radio host in Sacramento, saying that if things keep going the way they are, that's probably where things are headed, is maybe a major roster shakeup before the trade deadline. So maybe he could trade for Precious Achua. Maybe somebody better. Quick 10-second standings update here. You mentioned it a little bit before, but Detroit now 10-2 at the top of the Eastern Conference. Cleveland with this win improves to 8-4. Really brutal when you kind of think about that in that way. The Knicks with their loss tonight, they fall to 7-4. Philadelphia 7-4. Miami is in 5th place at 7-5. Milwaukee is also 7-5. The Heat play the Knicks on Friday, and then they play them again on Monday. So we just got this Cavaliers thing at Kaseya Center twice in a row. We're getting it with the New York Knicks. So the two best teams in the Eastern Conference going into the season, right? The two favorites, the Cavs and the Knicks. 4 games in a row against the preseason favorites in the conference. So this is one of the reasons why we said the schedule is going to be so hard to start the year. This is a tough part of the schedule, regardless of the Cavaliers playing a G League bench in this one. But interestingly enough, David, going back to some of the schedule and fatigue stuff, you get the Knicks Friday, right? So you get a 1-day break between tonight and then the Friday game. And then you play the Knicks on Monday. So you get a 2-day break, which kind of felt like the Heat earned a 2-day break after the 3 games in 4 nights thing.
Yeah.
You usually see a 2-day break at that point, and the Heat didn't get it, which is, again, why I think fatigue was a factor in this one, because you only got the 1-day break. So they finally get a 2-day break. It's just their second 2-day break all season. Other than that, they've been getting a 1-day break, or they've been playing back-to-backs with a West Coast trip shoehorned in the middle of all that. This has been a rough, and we didn't talk enough about this, but just from a rest advantage/disadvantage standpoint for Miami, this has been really rough to start the year.
It's a good point. And even this 2-day break, it comes after you have to travel to New York. So they'll probably be traveling tomorrow, going up there, playing the first game of a home and home, and then they welcome them back for, after that 2-day break back here in Miami, and then they take on the Golden State Warriors next Wednesday. So that's an emotional game there. I'm curious. The Warriors struggling a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see how this version of the Miami Heat prepare for that. But before that, you have to look to the Knicks. The Warriors game is going to be important for lots of reasons, but I think the Knicks games are really going to be a pivotal point for this team.
More important.
Yeah, without a doubt. Like, this is a defining point here, because if you want to be a top 4 team, like, you blew an opportunity, a really good opportunity tonight against the Cavaliers to help solidify your chances. Now you've got 2 games against a team that is almost directly above you in the standings. And if you can catch some of an opportunity, look, you had a great game against New York here in Miami. And you kind of now you have to go up there and see whether or not you're going to be as good, and maybe try to, again, put your imprint on the standings a little early against another Eastern Conference opponent. So it's a really good test over the next couple of days.
Hopefully Bam will be back by then. He's still listed day to day. We don't have any additional information on when he is going to come back. But hopefully by Friday he'll be available, because we know we're going to need him to guard Karl-Anthony Towns in that Knicks offense. So that'll do it for us today. Let us know what you think in the comments. Do they need to add a big man? Was this a bad loss? Was this a schedule loss? Are you seeing fatigue start to set in? Are you concerned about Nikola Jovic long term? But this has been Locked On Heat, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.